Welcome back to DECODE. On the 7th of May 2025, Pakistan defended itself. Over the 4 days that followed, with American, Saudi, and Chinese pressure converging on New Delhi, a ceasefire was announced. It held. It still holds tonight. But every serious analyst writing about South Asia in the years since has warned us not to read the ceasefire as the end of the story. There is a body of writing in Foreign Affairs, in IISS Survival, in the Stimson Center papers, in War on the Rocks, all converging on a single uncomfortable conclusion: that the next escalation will be designed to do in 3 or 4 days what India failed to do in 4 days last May. Strike harder, strike deeper, because the Indian planners learned one painful lesson from May last year. They learned that India cannot say no to the United States when Washington asks for a ceasefire. So if you cannot resist the ceasefire, you have to win before the ceasefire arrives at your door. 3 days, 4 days at most, present the world with a fait accompli. That is sobering. It tells us the doctrine on the other side has shifted from deterrence to a race against the clock. It tells us the next time the trigger is pulled, the time for cooler heads will be measured in hours, not days. And it tells us the responsibility on Pakistan, on its armed forces, its diplomats, its intelligence community, and its political leadership is to be ready before the trigger is pulled, not after. Pakistan is ready. The Pakistan Air Force is in stronger position today than it was on the 6th of May last year. We do not seek another 7th of May, but if it comes to us, it will find a country that has used its year very well. To talk about that comes next one of the sharpest defense and strategic affairs analysts with us. Let's welcome him on the show. We have a very prominent Pakistani defense analyst with us, Air Commodore retired Khalid Chishti. Thank you so much, Mr. Chishti, for joining us. Today is Marka-e-Haq first anniversary, and we do not celebrate war, but we are remembering the fallen, and we are talking about what is about to come in this region. So let's start with the analytical literature itself. There is a growing body of writing, including a much discussed essay in Foreign Affairs. I'm sure you have read it, and several pieces in the Stimson Center arguing that next India-Pakistan crisis will be compressed into 3 to 4 days, because India's planners have concluded that since they cannot win against an American ceasefire request, and therefore they must inflict maximum damage before the request arrives. From your reading, how serious is this analysis, and to what extent do you see Indian doctrinal writing actually moving in this direction?
Thank you very much, Ms. Zunaira, for the kind invitation and the good words. I also agree that India has realized that they cannot manage the escalation ladder because it went into the hands of Pakistan last war conflict, May particularly. Although, let me also share with you that Pakistani military leadership, and particularly the Pakistan Air Force that I can talk about, I was in touch with them then and even today. They were very, very mindful that the ladder of escalation should be controlled by us. We did not want to go all-out war with India, and we did not want to inflict that kind of damage onto India that it is compelled to start an international border war all across the border. Obviously, we were not looking forward to it. We were not excited about it. We just wanted to inflict a prohibitive price on the Indians for their initiative, what they did, and the offensive that they launched unprovoked, obviously past midnight, 12 a.m., almost 365 days back. And this is what had to be countered. And what Pakistan Air Force did was to impose that prohibitive price and to make sure that Indians do not consider this to be a new normal. Because we believe that if we do not respond back, the Indians will take it as that this is a new normal and they can choose any time, any place, any people to inflict damage and call them terrorists and call them that it's their call who's a terrorist and who's not. So we wanted to send a message that it's not your choice, and if you impose this choice, you will have a worse choice than what you choose. So this is what we did exactly. But I can assure you that we were very mindful in not escalating the war, because I do make documentaries for my own passion, and yesterday I uploaded a documentary on my channel in which I had done a research for the whole year. And it's a long documentary of about 80 minutes in which I got a privilege to visit Pakistan Air Force headquarters, operations room, talk to the pilots and the people and the top leadership. I learned all this 1 year research. I learned that they, particularly the Air Chief Marshal Zahir Ahmad Babu Sidhu, the Air Chief Pakistan Air Force, he said to me that we were very, very careful in not inflicting a damage which could be so painful in India. They are compelled to open all borders.
That's a calculus. I don't think much armies, much militaries follow this kind of deliberate calculation that how much of the damage should be inflicted on your opponent. But if the next escalation is designed for 3 to 4 days of maximum violence, as we are discussing, what does that mean operationally for Pakistan? Can you walk our viewers through what a compressed escalation cycle demands of an air force and of a missile command, of a national command authority, and of the political leadership? What is exactly that has to be there when it comes to the decision making? And do we have the luxury to think for long if that happens?
I think this is a very good question, and let me take the lead from many briefings that DGISPR and top military leadership has said. We are very clear about it, that if it escalates and it looks like that it's winding up in 3-4 days, obviously, and 3-4 days, India would look for a kind of optic or real-time victory, of course. That is what we're referring to. And that is why Indians are thinking that it should be short, crisp, intensified, and obviously very, very devastating, with devastating effects on Pakistan. Let me also show the kind of preparation that Pakistan had. The rocket force, the armed forces, the strategic command force, even in kinetic domain, non-kinetic and nuclear, that I'm not touching at that. So let me assure you that even if the India chooses to escalate and they have a design to finish in 3-4 days, probably we will not let them finish. This is my own assessment, that we will not let it be concluded in 3-4 days, because this will be made prohibitive, even more prohibitive, because they'll have to pay. They will not be able to choose that this is the end game. And obviously, alhamdulillah, we have such defense mechanism that they will not be able to inflict those desired damages upon us. What they can obviously look for, that they can inflict so heavy damages upon us that they can call it a ceasefire. I do not think that, if God forbid that happens, one thing I'm telling you that it inshallah will not happen. And even if India exceeds to an extent which optically they may call it a ceasefire time, we probably during those particular 3-4 days, and even beyond that, will inflict so much, probably even higher price on India, that they would not be able to call it a ceasefire.
Right. Just a supplementary question to this. Are we living in an era of air power and cyber war?
That's another good question. I think very relevant. And what Pakistan Air Force particularly foresaw many years back, obviously we've had a lot of technology intense mechanism and systems in place. But particularly the present Air Chief, he took over about 5 years back, and he was very passionate to take Pakistan Air Force into the electronic warfare, cyber command domain, and obviously the domain where we can carry out a mobile air defense system for Pakistan. Traditionally, let me apprise your viewers that radars and these sensors and the missiles were stationed at one place. They were predictable, and they could be targeted when they launched themselves a weapon on the enemy. So the enemy could come back. Let me give you an HQ-9B missile battery, which we recently acquired about 1.5 years back from China. This is highly mobile, versatile. It can change places. It can create deception plan. It can transmit fake transmissions to mislead the enemy.
So maneuverability is the new element that is actually incorporated.
I think absolutely. The cyber is going to add value to not only degrade the enemy awareness and situational awareness, but to an extent, employed correctly, it can affect the will to fight also, because they will lose their confidence in themselves, and there could be an element of chaos, which we saw in the Godzilla formation. If you recall the radio call which was played by Air Vice Marshal Aurangzeb during the ISPR brief, this is what Cyber Command was doing those times. They were inflicting electronic damage to the formation, where they got really disorientated. They lost the true awareness. And obviously, on 30th April, let me also give you a narrative. On 30th April last year, there were 4 Rafale which were trying to intrude towards Pakistan. They were stormed with this, and they had to do an emergency landing in Srinagar.
Can you reflect more on this Rafale story? What is the world concluding now? Now that it has been reported by all the international neutral observers as well, how are the analysts around the world viewing at this dogfight that happened last year?
You see, technically, this is not a dogfight. A dogfight were those in which obviously the pilots were fighting of very close combat. They could even look at each other. They could pick up the color of the helmet also. They were fighting so closely. In 1965 war, 71, those wars were dogfights. Even World War II was a dogfight war. Now, this war was a kind of beyond visual range missile war, which means that there were 85 aircraft
unable to identify the vehicles.
Yeah, you electronically identify the enemy. Actually, you do not physically see it, and especially this campaign which went on, it took place 12:30 a.m. 6th and 7th night. So there were about 85 aircraft coming in from Indian side. They were led in the front by Rafale aircraft for two purposes. One purpose was to penetrate Indo-Pakistan airspace and shoot down a couple of Pakistani aircraft. And the other role of this Rafale was that they carry Storm Shadow missile, which is air to surface standoff weapon. It has a huge range to about 150 to 200 kilometers. So they would fire it from long distance and turn back. And the other fleet would engage Pakistan Air Force jets and obviously possibly look for some shooting. This was their actual plan. But we, against 85, we got about 42 aircraft airborne in about 5 minutes. They went on to contest these 85 incoming aircraft. Air Chief Marshal was in the operations room, not only that night, but he was there for the last 20 days. He didn't go home. So he was fighting from there. He was leading from the front. He was looking at all the options. So he ordered these aircraft who had gone to defend, basically, to convert into an offensive mission when the Indian launched their air-to-surface missiles. So because he had told these pilots, because I met these pilots in connection with my documentaries later, before and after the war, and they told me that we had been told that even if the Indians launched standoff weapons from inside their border and do not violate Pakistan airspace, the punishment would be the same. That means we will retaliate, we will take them on, and this is exactly what happened, that this defensive mission was immediately converted on the orders of the air chief into an offensive mission, and he asked them, do not let these aircraft go back who have shot missiles, air-to-surface missiles to us. So this is what happened. The fight went on. 125 aircraft reportedly by BBC and CNN through satellite picture. They were contesting. And let me also apprise you, Ms. Zunaira, that they all carried almost 4 to 6 beyond visual range missiles. That means there were about 500 beyond visual range missiles past midnight 12 in the skies of Pakistan and India. Any misadventure, miscalculation, misidentification could have led to disaster, especially because civil airline and commercial aircraft had not been warned to go away from this area, because India thought that if such warning is issued, obviously this will give a notice to Pakistan.
Right.
So those aircraft were also flying in India and Pakistan, while Pakistan Air Force and Indian fighter jets were contesting in this obviously
It could have been a catastrophe, any kind of catastrophe, and also the fact that both countries are nuclear. So we actually came back from a brink of a catastrophe. Let's bring in the role of Washington. The Trump administration played a very decisive role in bringing these crises to a halt. And President Trump takes a lot of credit for it as well, publicly. From your reading, is the American role, if the next crisis happen, is that support going to be the same? Or because we are in a new geopolitical environment with the Iran war, with the Beijing dynamics, with the new Middle East that is recalibrating, in my opinion, do you think the Washington's bandwidth or interest would be any different? And are we ready? Like Pakistan has plans for both possibilities?
You see, possibly I'm the only analyst or maybe only Pakistanis out of 25 crore people who does not agree since day one that President Trump stopped this war. And I say it publicly, but what you're saying is President Trump said it publicly that I stopped this war, and I do not agree with this. And why do not I agree? It is because, please remember that J.D. Vance, the Vice President of US, had said on 9th May that we are not either side of the war, number one. President Trump, before the war was about to start, he said these countries have been fighting for thousands of years and they can sort the problem themselves.
Yeah.
You can recall. So when he said that, that means we were not on either side. He was not on either side. It's only the performance of 10th of May, the bombing that we did, And I calculated apart my research, and I said it in my documentaries that, and I reconfirmed from Pakistan Air Force later. And let me also repeat if you haven't heard it before. I said it and I stand by that the weapon that we fired upon India, the tonnage that we dropped on 10th in 4.5 hours only, was more than 17 days of 1965 war. So look at 4.5 hours of tonnage versus 17 days. And that is what invited, obviously, Indian, or with compelled Indian to invite President Trump. So I keep saying that President Trump facilitated the war, first off. But Pakistani people, Pakistan Armed Forces and Pakistan Air Force enabled this country, obviously, enabled the situation in which President Trump had to come. And I also give a last word on this sentence is that I also give an example, hypothetically, God forbid, the Indian armed forces were heavy upon us. They were taking any leverage or they were having advantageous position. Would President Trump have come? Probably not.
So what do you anticipate in the wake of the current geopolitical happenings if such a crisis is there again in front of us? Are we ready for that?
I think what my research says, we are definitely ready. Even we have overcome the challenges that we faced during the last war. That's one. The invitation by the President of Trump or anybody else would probably depend if the national interest of Pakistan and the performance of Pakistan converges towards America in future too. No nation comes to help of any other country unless you have a common interest. Why the last war was obviously stopped by President Trump, that we were almost making European, Western, American and many other weapons almost less relevant to the globe, because our J-10C Chinese aircraft, PL-15 Chinese missile obviously dominated the sky, employed beautifully or perfectly by Pakistan Air Force. Obviously, what you're talking, Rafale, S-400, MiG-20, MiG-29, Su-30, Mirage 2000, Rafale, and these obviously proved not of much significance and value in favor of Indian Air Force. Obviously, those weapons were highly potent. But what Pakistan Air Force did was, that amazed everybody, and obviously Indians were shocked, and the rest of the world was obviously absolutely stunned by seeing that what Pakistanis are doing. So I think they came to stop this war, that let this be the end, so that the West weapons are not exposed anymore, that will become irrelevant for many of the customers which were almost in the queue to buy those weapons.
My last question to you, what is the possibility in terms of the probability, let's say, that it was India that asked US for a ceasefire?
There is no probability. I'm sure about it. Why? I do not have a proof. But let me assure you that probably I'm waiting for the day when President Trump is unhappy a little to a higher degree about India, and he will come out with this, that Indians approach him. I'm very sure about it. But it's a prohibitive cost that we imposed on India on 10th, which compelled them to seek assistance for President Trump. I have no doubt about it.
Air Commodore retired Khalid Chishti, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you so much.